What is going on, everybody? I am back today because recently I made a video talking about my favorite horror movies of the decade so far. And I really enjoyed making that video. I chose three films from each year in the decade, 2020 to currently, and talked about those. And it seemed like you guys had a really positive response to that video. And I actually got a comment from someone saying, "Nate, will you do 2015 to 2019?" And I was like, yeah, I can 100% do that, but I thought I would do you one better. So this is going to be a bit longer of a video today, but I'm going to talk about my favorite horror movies of the 2010s. So we're going to go from 2010 to 2019 since the other video started off in 2020. And I tried to pick three films from each year, and one of them I think it was very scarce, so I only picked two. So I think the year following I did a little bit of a cheat and picked four. But I'm going to pick three pretty much for each year. And so I want to jump into this right now because it is a relatively long list. And I'm excited to mention these. I'm not going to go too deep into detail because there's just so many of them, but I'm going to mention them, talk about the things I like, and then we'll move on. So this is my list of my favorite horror films of the 2010s. Starting out first in 2010, we're going to talk about James Wan's Insidious. I did a re-review of this not that long ago, so I'm not going to go into great detail. I love James Wan. I think he's a phenomenal director, and I think this is exactly what, major blockbuster horror should be. I think it is genuinely scary. I think it's a great balance of jump scares, genuinely horrific imagery. I think the performances are all really great. I think it has amazing atmosphere. It's a movie that every time I revisit it, I grow to love it more and more. It's exceptional. It's one of the best of the best. I appreciate it a lot, and I'm not going to say much more about it. Next is the sci-fi horror film Beyond the Black Rainbow from director Panos Cosmatos. This is unconventional horror. It's very surreal, it's abstract, but it is genuinely terrifying. Some of the most beautiful imagery that I've ever seen in a movie. Panos Cosmatos is brilliant at that. I feel like throughout his entire career, he has just done an amazing job creating these surrealist nightmare worlds. It's like the way information is introduced to you, you're constantly questioning what's going to happen next. It is just a completely and totally brilliant movie that also has really amazing music, and it's something that I think about quite a bit. This is the film I Saw the Devil. This is a Korean horror suspense thriller about a man chasing down a serial murderer. It might not be conventional horror in the sense to a lot of people, but the movie is genuinely horrific to me. I feel like the inciting incident and why this character becomes fixated on hunting down this serial killer, it's fascinating. It's one of the things that I love about Korean cinema. It juggles tone so brilliantly. There are moments that are honestly kind of funny, but there are also moments that are genuinely heartbreaking and unsettling. There are moments that are genuinely disturbing and horrific. And I am someone that, if you've watched me for a while, in horror, I love horror that balances tone really well and that can kind of explore all different themes and ideas. And I think I Saw the Devil does that brilliantly. It's one of my favorite movies of all time. It's just a brilliant film. Up next, moving into 2011, is the Adam Wingard film You're Next, a movie that I feel like does not get the love that it deserves. A movie that I went into the theater, had no idea what to expect, and it genuinely caught me off guard. You go into it thinking it's going to be a stereotypical home invasion thriller, and it becomes something entirely different. I think it is genuinely funny. It's incredibly disturbing. Some of the horrific death sequences in this are some of my personal favorites. I love the lead actress. I think she is incredible in this. It is just a really fun, entertaining film that I grow to appreciate more with every rewatch. Up next is the Ty West film The Innkeepers. This one is probably going to vary based on person to person. There's a lot of people that are like, there's one scary scene in the entire movie, but one of the things I love about Ty West's early work is how great of an atmospheric director he is, and I love the setting of this movie. I think that the way that the suspense is built up in and when you get to those genuinely horrific moments, that it's earned. I really love the characters in this. I think the way that it's established is great, and it also is very hopeless. This movie is very bleak and hopeless and ends on a really dour note, and I love directors that aren't afraid to take those risks, and that's what I really appreciate so much about this movie. Next is the Drew Goddard film, The Cabin in the Woods, a movie I think I saw 3 times in theaters when it was released while I was working at the movie theater. This is just a ton of fun. It's a movie that sets itself up as a traditional cabin in the woods horror movie, but becomes something entirely different. It's very meta, it's funny, it's over the top. A lot of it is reminiscent of the things I like about Evil Dead 2, where it's like it takes its horror very seriously, but it also knows how to be slapstick and fun. I think the cast is all really incredible. I haven't seen it in a few years now, but I genuinely loved this movie a lot. And I just think it's a really fun horror movie, and it's a very easily accessible horror movie that I think even if you're not the biggest fan of the genre, you can find something to appreciate in this movie. So 2012 is a year that's kind of skimmed for me in really great horror movies. So I picked two. And the first one is Scott Derrickson's film Sinister. This is not a perfect movie by any means, but I do think it is fantastically executed. I think when I talk a lot about my irritation with jump scares, what I like about what Derrickson does in this movie is the way that he is able to balance jump scares with genuinely horrific imagery. I think having this character of this father who writes these books, he hasn't done anything interesting for a while, that he's so like desperate to succeed that he moves his family into a house where a family has been horrifically murdered so that he can study it. I just think there's so much about this plot that is interesting, and I love the way that it plays out. Some people think Bagul is incredibly silly. I actually think the way that he's incorporated into the movie is very excellent. The movie genuinely scares me. The last time I watched it, I really appreciated it a lot. I think it's a great horror movie, and I definitely think it's worth your time. Up next is the Frank Calhoun remake of the film Maniac. I don't typically love remakes, but I think this movie does its own unique thing with the original Maniac material that makes it special. The whole POV element of the movie is really executed well. Elijah Wood gives something completely different to this performance. There's something about his character that comes across as very like timid and meek, but he's like able to commit these really horrible crimes, where in the original Maniac, that character is very brooding, menacing, and strong. And I think like having that dichotomy is really interesting. This film dives a little bit more into the character's relationship with her mother, where a lot of this psychological trauma comes from, which I'm not always into diving into deep past and those things of these horror icons or these horror characters. But I think so much of that is to this movie's benefit. It's just a really well executed horror remake that I think is 100% worth your time. Starting off 2013, I'm going to talk about Jonathan Glazer's Under the Skin, a movie that some people out there probably think is the most boring film of all time. I love this movie. It's horror in a very different way. It's science fiction, very surreal, art house, unconventional narrative. One of the things I love so much about this movie is when Scarlett Johansson was driving around, most of the people she interacted with didn't even realize she was working on a movie, which is something that I love so much about it. It is literally about an alien in a strange world that has been sent to a place to accomplish a very specific mission, but then starts to be around human beings and develop a very different understanding of who they are and what they could possibly be. And I just think there's a lot of beauty in the story, but I also think it's genuinely horrifying. I think the moments where she takes these men back to this place and they sort of sink into this endless void, there are some genuinely horrifying imagery in this movie. The Mika Levy score is like one of my favorites in the past 20 years. It's a brilliant film score. It's one that I listen to pretty regularly, and it's just an incredible movie that I feel like if you're a fan of surreal art house film, you'll really like. Next is another James Wan film, The Conjuring, another movie very similarly to Insidious that I think is the perfect big budget horror movie. Like, I love indie art house horror, I love independent horror, but I also love when a big budget horror movie or a horror film that's kind of marketed to the masses can be successful. This movie has great jump scares, but it also has very great imagery. It has a lot of moments that the camera lingers on something that you're required to stare at that makes you feel uncomfortable. It has great music. It has phenomenal performances. I think having, the characters of the Warrens be very likable, enjoyable characters following along the series. I know in real life they're not great people, but in these movies, they're fun characters to follow. I love that they always do a really great job building up the families. And I think the family in this movie, all of the actors do a really great job with their performances. It's a movie that I revisit revisited this year, really like it a lot, and I'll continue to like it in years to come. Up next is going to be another horror movie remake, surprisingly, and that is the Fede Alvarez remake of Evil Dead. Evil Dead, Sam Raimi's, is one of my favorite films of all time, but I feel like Fede Alvarez does his own unique thing with this movie. It is genuinely disturbing. I love that they utilize this whole setting and environment as an allegory for drug addiction. It works incredibly well. All of the performances from the actors are great, and this is one of the most brutal horror movies that I've ever watched. The violence is relentless. It's disgusting. They go very over the top in the third act in a way that I think is incredibly earned. It's just a brilliant horror remake, one of the best ever done, and it's one of my favorite horror films of the decade. Moving into 2014, we're going to talk about David Robert Mitchell's film It Follows. When I started my favorite series, that was the very first film that I covered. I think this movie is so incredibly special for a lot of reasons. The premise is really interesting. The idea that this entity continues to follow you until you're dead. You can kind of go anywhere. It moves at one pace, but eventually it's going to catch up to you. For someone who deals with like a really debilitating anxiety, that's something that horrifies me. I couldn't even comprehend like thinking that someone is going to come and get you at any particular moment. But what I love so much about this movie and like David Robert Mitchell as a director is the way that he sets up like atmosphere. The setting of this movie is really incredible to me. I love the ambiguity of the time period. So much of like I don't even think a cell phone is introduced until much later into the film, but like they go to the theater and like there's a piano player like at the movie theater. There's so many different things from different eras incorporated into the movie. And I think that makes you as a viewer very unsettled when you don't know exactly what you're getting into or the space or the time that you're in. And then the performances are all really great. Micah Monroe has become one of my favorite like horror actresses. I feel like every time she's in a movie, I'm so incredibly impressed with what she does and what she brings to the table. It's just a very excellent film that I grow to appreciate more with every rewatch. Up next is Patrick Brice's Creep. I am a huge found footage fan. This is one of my favorite found footage movies, and I think there are multiple reasons for that, but number one is Mark Duplass's brilliant performance. I feel like the way that his character takes you on this journey, you never really know what's going to happen next. It's very unsettling. His character can come across as incredibly friendly in one moment, but also menacing and evil in the next. And I think that's what makes him such a special talent. I think Patrick Brice being in this movie brings a lot to the table. I think his chemistry with Mark Duplass makes it very special. And I think what the guys have been able to do with the two films and then the subsequent series that they've done on Shudder is incredibly impressive. But this movie is a great starting point. It's phenomenal, and I love it more and more every time I watch it. And then the last one for 2014 is Jennifer Kent's The Babadook. This is a movie that really shook me up the first time that I watched it because I think it does such an incredible job portraying so many different things, especially like being a single mother and taking care of a kid when the kid is not the most likable child and is very like annoying and in your face and just takes up so much of you, and then like mixing that up with your own PTSD, mental health issues that you're experiencing, and the creature being so symbolic of these mental health issues works incredibly well. The movie is jarring, it's disturbing, it's very well executed. It's a movie that I recommend to a lot of people, and I think a lot of the critiques surrounding the movie, especially like when it comes to how annoying the child is, like they don't get what the director is setting out to do because the character is supposed to feel that way. And I just think it's a really well-made horror film. Moving into 2015, we're going to talk about Robert Eggers' The Witch, a film that I have tattooed on my arm. One of the greatest horror films of the past 20 years, in my personal opinion. This movie does such an amazing job putting characters into a space and watching them tear each other apart. And I think there's something so fascinating about the fact that it is a family. And I feel like the other part that's really fascinating is the fact that it's religion that is tearing them apart. This father's stronghold belief on his religious ideology, so much so that he doesn't believe in the religion that is being practiced in this community to the point he pulls his family away from it, and how religion is really what begins to tear the family apart because they believe their daughter to be a witch. I think that the way the movie slowly just kind of like builds up into this very intense climax is really incredible. This is an early Anya Taylor-Joy performance. She is phenomenal. phenomenal in this film. The entire cast of characters is great. The period accurate dialogue is amazing. The cinematography is breathtaking. The music is incredible. There's just nothing negative I can say about this movie. It's amazing. Up next is Stephen Cognetti's Hell House LLC, a movie that really made me fall in love with the found footage format. I've talked about these movies extensively recently, so I'm not going to go into a lot of detail, but it has great atmosphere. The setting is amazing. The characters really work well together. They have excellent chemistry. It's just a great found footage movie. And then to finish off 2015, it is Oz Perkins' film, The Black Coat's Daughter. This is a slow burn, atmospheric art house horror film with great performances. I love the way this thing builds up into just complete and total chaos. The reveals in the movie are great. The performances from all of the actresses involved are excellent. And it really kind of showcases how Oz has become this really powerhouse horror director. And like everything that makes him special, it's showcased in this really early work in his filmography. Moving into 2016, we're going to talk about Julia Ducournau's film Raw. This movie made me feel incredibly sick. I am not good with cannibal films, but I feel like this, using cannibalism with like this coming of age format, is just really fascinating, especially starting the character off as a vegetarian or a vegan. Really makes the movie unsettling as it moves on. Love the lead performance from this actress. She is incredible in it. It's very disturbing. It's incredibly unsettling. Some imagery that I've never been able to purge from my mind. Ducournau is just a brilliant director, and I can't wait to see what she does next. Next is the film Train to Busan, one of my favorite zombie films ever created, and the reason for that is the amazing character writing in this movie. The characters in this film are some of my favorites in any horror movie. I feel like the way this thing just consistently amps up as it moves forward is so incredibly impressive. It is heartbreaking, it's gut-wrenching, it's everything you could possibly want in a zombie horror film. And then up next is Mike Flanagan's Ouija Origin of Evil, a movie that did not get good reviews when it was first released, but a movie that I genuinely love because I think it's what makes Mike Flanagan such a special horror director, which is building up a very great family dynamic and then watching them fall into chaos. There's some genuinely horrific imagery in this movie. It is unsettling and it is bleak, and it has one of the darkest, most bleak endings you could possibly imagine to a movie, which is something that maybe it makes me sadistic, but that I really like in horror. Moving into 2017, I cannot go without mentioning Jordan Peele's Get Out, a movie that is so culturally significant and incredibly brilliant, and I think that it deserves every accolade that it's ever received. Jordan Peele, coming from comedy, does such an amazing job with horror because I feel like so many great people from comedic backgrounds make horror really well because the approach to creating that, you have to really be dedicated to what makes something scary, and I think there's also comedy that can be involved in horror, and I think like, you have to laugh amidst the chaos in life, and Jordan Peele does an amazing job with that. I also think the societal commentary in the movie is incredibly brilliant. The performances are amazing. The twists and turns along the way are what make it so incredibly special. Jordan Peele is just such an amazing talent, and I can't wait to see what else he does in his career. Up next is Yorgos Lanthimos' The Killing of a Sacred Deer, a film that not everybody might see as a traditional horror movie, but for me, it is genuinely horrific. The idea that your family is plagued with this curse that if you don't kill one of them, that they will all slowly die in front of you is a genuinely horrific concept to me, and I think it is brilliantly executed from Yorgos. The way that the movie starts off with a very different it's very eerie and unsettling, but it progressively gets more and more disturbing, but it's also very funny, and there are things that you laugh at in this movie that you probably shouldn't, and that's what I love about Yorgos. I think that he is amazing and so talented at creating multiple feelings for you as a viewer. He makes you feel uncomfortable, which I think the best directors are good at. It's just a really amazing movie. And then to finish off 2017, we're going to talk about Coralie Farge's debut film, Revenge. This is such an incredible movie that is really unsettling and hard to get through. It is a rape revenge story, but told through the eyes of a woman in a way that I think is incredibly powerful. And it's a movie that has stuck with me for a very long time since I watched it. Beautiful imagery, an amazing lead performance. It's violent, it's brutal, it's relentless. It's just everything you could possibly want in a movie. It's just amazing what Coralie was able to pull off in this, and obviously later on in her career making something like The Substance. She's just an amazing director. I love this movie a lot. So 2018 is the year that I'm going to put 4 4 pieces of media in. I feel like I have to cheat. This is a really great year for horror. So I'm going to start off with Luca Guadagnino's remake of Suspiria, a film that I will never forgive people for not going to the theater to watch, because this is a perfect movie in my opinion. I think it is better than the original Suspiria. It has so much more storytelling. I feel like it's atmospheric. It has beautiful cinematography. It's a genuinely gut-wrenching movie. It has a beautiful story at its core. I feel like all of the performances are excellent, specifically Tilda Swinton playing 3 different characters in the movie. Dakota Johnson is amazing in it. Mia Goth is great. Chloe Grace Moretz. Everyone that shows up is phenomenal. The score from Tom York is brilliant. It is one of my favorite horror movies of the past 20 years. And then we'll follow that up with Ari Aster's Hereditary, another movie that I feel like is genre defining, an incredible horror movie that utilizes family trauma mixed with supernatural elements to create something that is so guttural and just like disturbing. Really amazing. Toni Collette should have been nominated for Best Actress for this movie. I really cannot believe that she was not, because she gives one of the best performances of the past 20 years. Just really remarkable. It really just goes to show what an incredible talent Ari Aster is, that this was kind of his gateway into filmmaking. It's a movie I think about like once a week. And then another Panos Cosmatos film, Mandy. This is brilliant. It starts out as a love story and turns into a revenge murder film, with Nicolas Cage giving one of the best performances of his career. This is one of the most visually beautiful films I've ever seen. The color palette is amazing. The music in it is just, it's one of my favorite scores ever created for a film. The violence is brutal and unrelenting, but I love that it starts out as this very quiet, refined romance film. It's just a really amazing movie I would recommend to anyone. And then lastly, this isn't a movie, it's a miniseries, but Mike Flanagan's The Haunting of Hill House, one of the greatest television miniseries ever created. Next to Midnight Mass, great character writing. It's suspenseful, genuinely scary. It's something that I've been wanting to revisit and rewatch for quite some time now. I think about it a lot. It is just incredible. And then the last year of the decade is 2019. We'll start off with another one of my favorite movies ever made, and that is Robert Eggers' The Lighthouse. Psychological horror done brilliantly. Willem Dafoe should have been nominated for a supporting actor award for this. It's one of the greatest performances of his career. His chemistry with Robert Pattinson is amazing. This movie is visually probably the most stunning film made in the past 20 years, like visually, cinematographically. I love the music in this. It's just an incredible movie that I would recommend to virtually anyone. And then Ari Aster again showing up with Midsommar, one of the best horror films that I have seen in a long time. I love that it's so bright and vibrant, but also horrific. You don't see a lot of people making horror movies that take place in the dead of daytime. It's just a really amazing experience. Florence Pugh gives a phenomenal performance. I love how much of this is related to PTSD and trauma, and like that yearning for community and finding that community in the wrong place. And it's just a really excellent film that I enjoy revisiting. And last up, I'll finish with a misunderstood film that I think a lot of people give too much crap for, and that's Mike Flanagan's Dr. Sleep, a film that I think both appeals to the things that make Stephen King's book really special and the things that I feel like make Stanley Kubrick's Shining incredibly special. Great character writing in this. I love the entire beginning of the film and the way that it's built up. I know some people think the third act gets a little fan servicey. I don't care. I think that it's done in a way that works very well. I appreciate this movie a lot, and I grow to appreciate it more on every rewatch. So that is my favorite horror films of the 2010s. What are yours? Let me know in the comments. I know this is a relatively long video, but I'm excited to hear what you guys have to say. As always, if you can like the video and subscribe to the channel, helps me out a lot and lets me know the type of content you're looking for. I'm always putting out new material and look forward to getting more out for you in the near future. And as always, everyone, thank you so much for watching and have a great rest of your day.